In the heart of Meadowbrook Elementary lived a bright and cheerful girl named Sarah. Sarah loved to draw more than anything in the world. Her wheelchair never stopped her imagination from soaring to new heights. Her drawings were filled with fantastical creatures and vibrant landscapes, each telling a unique story. Sarah was known for her kind heart and infectious laughter. She always had a smile for everyone she met. Art class was her favorite time of the day. The smell of crayons and the feel of paper made her heart sing. She dreamed of becoming a famous artist one day, sharing her colorful world with everyone. Little did she know, a storm was brewing that would test her spirit and introduce an unexpected friend into her life. Meadowbrook Elementary was generally a happy place. Most kids were friendly and eager to learn. Teachers smiled in the hallways and colorful artwork decorated the walls. But like any school, it wasn't perfect. A small group of kids liked to cause trouble. They didn't pick on everyone, but they always seemed to find someone to tease or make feel small. The school had a big playground with swings and slides, a library filled with exciting books, and a cafeteria that served surprisingly good pizza on Fridays. Everyone looked forward to Fridays. The atmosphere of the school was generally positive, but the shadow of those few mean kids loomed, making some students anxious about being targeted. Sarah, despite her sunny disposition, sometimes felt a little nervous about running into them. The ringleader of the group was a boy named Jake. He was bigger than most of the other fourth graders, and he used his size to try and scare people. His two sidekicks were Mike and Lisa. Mike was always eager to please Jake, laughing at all his jokes, even the mean ones. Lisa mostly followed along, whispering snide comments and rolling her eyes at anyone Jake targeted. They usually picked on kids who were smaller than them or who seemed a little different. They made fun of kids' clothes, their lunches, or even the way they talked. They thought it was funny, but it made the other kids feel awful. Everyone tried to avoid them, but sometimes it was impossible. Jake, Mike, and Lisa were like a dark cloud hanging over Meadowbrook Elementary, waiting to rain on someone's parade. It was lunchtime on a Tuesday. The cafeteria buzzed with the sounds of chattering kids and clattering trays. Sarah carefully wheeled herself to her usual spot near the window, her art supplies tucked securely in her backpack. She loved watching the birds outside while she ate her lunch and sketched in her notebook. Today, she was working on a drawing of a friendly dragon who lived in a candy forest. The dragon had lollipops for scales and gumdrop wings. Sarah was so engrossed in her drawing that she barely noticed Jake, Mike, and Lisa enter the cafeteria. They scanned the room, their eyes searching for someone to bother. They spotted Sarah sitting alone by the window, a perfect target. They smirked at each other and began to walk in her direction, pretending to be friendly. "Hey, Sarah," Jake said, his voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Whatcha drawing?" Sarah looked up, surprised. "Oh, hi, Jake," she replied a little warily. "Just a dragon." Suddenly, Jake snatched Sarah's juice box from her tray. Before she could react, he ripped it open and poured the juice all over her and her drawing. Mike and Lisa burst into laughter. "Oops," Jake said, pretending to be surprised. "Looks like you had a little accident." The cold juice soaked Sarah's clothes and dripped onto her wheelchair. The colorful drawing was now a soggy, stained mess. Sarah's face turned red with embarrassment and anger. The laughter of Jake, Mike, and Lisa echoed in her ears. She felt tears welling up in her eyes. The dragon in the candy forest was ruined, and so was her day. The humiliation stung more than the cold juice. Sarah felt like everyone in the cafeteria was staring at her. The bright colors of her clothes now had a sticky purple stain. The drawing, her precious dragon, was ruined beyond repair. Tears streamed down her face, blurring her vision. She wanted to disappear, to be invisible. Her heart ached with sadness and anger. Why did they do this to her? What had she ever done to deserve such cruelty? She gripped the wheels of her chair, trying to control her shaking hands. The cafeteria, once a place of happy chatter, now felt like a prison. Each laugh, each whisper, seemed to mock her. Sarah just wanted to go home and forget this awful day ever happened. Across the cafeteria, Imani had just finished getting her lunch. Imani was known for her confidence and her strong sense of justice. She always stood up for what was right, no matter what. She had a warm smile and a kind heart, but she wasn't afraid to speak her mind. As Imani looked for a table, she saw Jake, Mike, and Lisa surrounding Sarah. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but she could see the juice being poured and Sarah's face crumpling in distress. A fire ignited within Imani. She knew instantly that something terrible was happening, and she wasn't going to stand by and watch. Imani put her lunch tray down on the nearest empty table and started walking towards the commotion, her eyes fixed on the bullies. As Imani approached, she took a deep breath, calming herself. She needed to be strategic. Rushing in blindly wouldn't help Sarah. She observed the scene carefully. Jake was still smirking. Lisa was whispering something to Mike, and Sarah was clearly distressed, tears streaming down her face. Imani's eyes narrowed. She hated seeing anyone treated unfairly. She noticed the ruined drawing and the juice dripping from Sarah's clothes and chair. A wave of anger washed over her, but she kept her expression calm and collected. She needed to think clearly. This wasn't just about stopping the bullying. It was about making sure Sarah felt supported and safe. Imani knew that words could be just as powerful as actions, and she was ready to use them. Imani stopped a few feet away from Jake, Mike, and Lisa. Her voice was calm, but firm. "Jake," she said, her eyes locking with his. "Why did you do that?" Jake turned around, a smirk still on his face. "Do what?" he asked, feigning innocence. "It was just an accident." "Don't lie, Jake," Imani replied, her voice unwavering. "Everyone saw what you did. You poured juice all over Sarah and her drawing. That wasn't an accident. That was mean." Mike and Lisa shifted uncomfortably, but Jake stood his ground. He crossed his arms and glared at Imani. "Mind your own business," he said. "This doesn't concern you." "It concerns me when I see someone being treated unfairly," Imani responded. "Sarah didn't do anything to you. Why would you do something like that to her?"
Keskiviikko Scoffed.
"Maybe she shouldn't be sitting there if she doesn't want to get wet," he retorted, looking at Sarah with a cruel smile. Then, turning his attention back to Imani, he said, "And what's it to you anyway? You think you're so tough, huh? Coming over here with your braids. You think you're all that." He stepped closer to Imani, trying to intimidate her with his size. "Why don't you just go back to your own business and leave us alone?" he sneered. "Unless you want to end up soaked in juice too." Mike and Lisa snickered behind him, egging him on. Jake thought he was so powerful, but Imani saw right through him. She saw the insecurity hiding beneath his tough act. Imani stood her ground, unfazed by Jake's attempt at intimidation. She looked him straight in the eye and said, "My braids are beautiful. Thank you very much. And unlike you, I don't need to pick on people to feel good about myself." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You think you're so tough, Jake, but you're just a bully. You pick on people who can't defend themselves because it makes you feel powerful. But it doesn't make you powerful. It makes you weak." Imani's voice was steady and strong, cutting through Jake's bluster. She could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a hint that her words were hitting home. She pressed on, determined to expose his behavior for what it was. "Pouring juice on someone isn't funny, Jake," Imani continued, her voice filled with conviction. "It's not cool and it doesn't make you look big or strong. It just makes you look mean. And honestly, it's kind of pathetic." She glanced at Mike and Lisa, who were starting to look uncomfortable. "Is this really what you want to be known for? Being someone who makes other people feel bad? Is that the kind of person you want to be?" Imani's words hung in the air, silencing the cafeteria. Even the clatter of trays seemed to fade away. She had managed to shift the focus from Jake's false bravado to the real consequences of his actions. She wanted him and his friends to truly understand the hurt they had caused. As Imani spoke, more and more students started to pay attention. Some stopped eating, others turned in their chairs, all drawn to the unfolding drama. They didn't say anything, but their presence was a silent show of support for Imani and Sarah. Many of them had witnessed Jake's bullying before, but were too afraid to speak up. Now, seeing Imani standing up to him, they felt a surge of hope and courage. They realized they weren't alone in their disapproval of Jake's behavior. A few students even started to subtly nod in agreement with Imani's words. The atmosphere in the cafeteria had shifted. The bullies were no longer the center of attention. Imani's bravery had become the focal point. Ku, feeling the shift in the atmosphere and realizing he was losing control of the situation, grew even more agitated. He balled his fists and stepped closer to Imani, his face red with anger. "You think you're so smart, huh?" he snarled. "Well, let's see how smart you are when you're on the ground." He raised his hand as if to push her, trying to physically intimidate her into backing down. Mike and Lisa cheered him on, their earlier discomfort forgotten in their loyalty to Jake. But Imani didn't flinch. She knew that Jake was trying to provoke her, to make her react impulsively. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. She stood her ground, her eyes fixed on Jake's, waiting for his next move. As Jake lunged forward, Imani quickly sidestepped, using his own momentum against him. She gently pushed his arm, causing him to stumble and lose his balance. He wasn't seriously hurt, but he did fall to the ground with a surprised, "Oof." Mike and Lisa gasped, their cheers turning into worried murmurs. They had never seen anyone stand up to Jake like this before, let alone make him fall. The other students in the cafeteria watched in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. Jake scrambled to his feet, his face a mixture of anger and humiliation. He couldn't believe that Imani, who was smaller than him, had managed to make him fall. The power dynamic had completely shifted. Mike and Lisa looked at each other, unsure of what to do. They had always relied on Jake's size and intimidation to get their way, but now he was the one who looked vulnerable. They hesitated, realizing that Imani wasn't afraid of them. The fear that Jake usually inspired seemed to have vanished. They saw the determination in Imani's eyes and understood that she wouldn't back down, no matter what. For the first time, they questioned their loyalty to Jake. Was it really worth it to follow someone who was so mean and who was now lying on the cafeteria floor? Defeated? A seed of doubt had been planted, and they weren't sure what to do next. The silence stretched, thick with tension. Imani turned her attention back to Sarah, who was still sitting in her wheelchair, looking shaken but a little less tearful. Imani knelt beside her, offering a warm smile. "Hey," she said softly. "Are you okay?" Sarah sniffled and nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Yeah," she mumbled. "I think so. That was really mean of them," Imani said, her voice filled with sympathy. "But don't let them get to you. You're an amazing artist, and they're just jealous." Imani gently started wiping some of the juice off Sarah's arm with a napkin she had pulled from her pocket. "Let's get you cleaned up," she said. "Then, we can figure out how to fix your drawing." Imani's kindness was a balm to Sarah's wounded spirit. Seeing Imani's kindness, some of the other students who had been watching started to help. A girl named Maya ran to get some paper towels from the restroom. A boy named David offered Sarah his unopened juice box. Another student, Emily, who also loved to draw, brought Sarah a brand new art pad from her backpack. Soon, a small group of kids was gathered around Sarah, helping to clean up the mess and offering words of encouragement. They wiped the floor, cleaned Sarah's wheelchair, and tried to salvage what they could of her drawing. The atmosphere in the cafeteria had completely transformed. What had started as an act of cruelty had turned into an act of kindness and solidarity. Imani smiled, feeling proud of her classmates for standing up for what was right. Just then, the principal, Mrs. Davis, walked into the cafeteria, her brow furrowed with concern. She had been alerted to the commotion and rushed to see what was happening. The room fell silent as she approached the group gathered around Sarah. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice firm but calm. Imani stepped forward, taking a deep breath. "Jake poured juice on Sarah," she explained, pointing to the stain on Sarah's clothes and the ruined drawing. "I saw it happen, and so did a lot of other kids. He was being a bully." Mrs. Davis's expression hardened as she looked at Jake, who was still standing awkwardly near Mike and Lisa, looking ashamed. She knew Jake had a history of causing trouble, but she had hoped he was learning to behave. Clearly, she was wrong. "Jake, is this true?" Mrs. Davis asked, her voice stern. Jake mumbled something unintelligible, avoiding her gaze. "Speak up, Jake," Mrs. Davis insisted. "Yes, ma'am," Jake admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I poured juice on Sarah." Mrs. Davis sighed. "Jake, you know that bullying is not tolerated at Meadowbrook," she said. "We expect all of our students to treat each other with kindness and respect. Your behavior was completely unacceptable." She looked at Mike and Lisa. "And you too," she added. "You should know better than to encourage this kind of behavior." Mrs. Davis emphasized the importance of empathy and considering the feelings of others. "I want all three of you to apologize to Sarah right now," Mrs. Davis said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Jake shuffled his feet and mumbled, "Sorry, Sarah." His apology sounded insincere and forced. Mike and Lisa echoed his apology, their voices equally lacking in remorse. Imani frowned. She knew that a true apology meant more than just saying the words. It meant understanding the impact of your actions and showing genuine regret. She glanced at Sarah, who still looked hurt and unconvinced. Imani knew she had to do something to make sure the apology was meaningful. It needed to come from the heart. Imani gently turned to Sarah and said, "Sarah, can you tell them how it made you feel when they poured juice on you? Sometimes, people don't understand how their actions affect others until you explain it to them." Sarah hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "It made me feel sad," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "and embarrassed, and like I wasn't good enough. My drawing was ruined, and it was something I worked really hard on." She looked at Jake, Mike, and Lisa, her eyes filled with hurt. "It wasn't just juice," she added. "It was like you were saying that my art and me didn't matter." The cafeteria was silent, every one hanging on her every word. Jake, Mike, and Lisa looked at Sarah, their faces etched with a mixture of guilt and surprise. They hadn't realized how deeply their actions had affected her. They finally understood that bullying wasn't just a harmless prank. It could cause real pain and damage. "We're really sorry, Sarah," Jake said, his voice sincere this time. "We didn't mean to make you feel that way." Mike and Lisa nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with genuine remorse. "We promise it won't happen again," Lisa added. Mrs. Davis nodded, satisfied that the apology was finally heartfelt. In addition to apologizing, Mrs. Davis continued, "I'm assigning all three of you community service. You will be helping students with disabilities for the next 2 weeks. This will give you an opportunity to learn more about empathy and understanding." Jake, Mike, and Lisa looked at each other, their faces falling. They had hoped that the apology would be enough, but now they had to spend their afternoons helping others. However, deep down, they knew that Mrs. Davis was right. They needed to learn a lesson about kindness and compassion. They reluctantly agreed to the community service, hoping that it would help them become better people. They understood that actions had consequences. After the incident, Sarah and Imani became fast friends. They discovered that they shared a love for art and a strong sense of justice. They spent hours drawing together, sharing stories and laughing. Imani admired Sarah's creativity and talent, and Sarah admired Imani's courage and confidence. They supported each other's dreams and encouraged each other to be their best selves. They realized that even though they were different, they had a lot in common. Their friendship blossomed, proving that even the most unlikely of people can find common ground and create something beautiful together. They knew that their friendship would last a lifetime. As Jake, Mike, and Lisa spent time helping students with disabilities, they began to see the world from a different perspective. They learned about the challenges that these students faced every day and realized that everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. They started to feel empathy for those who were different from them and understood that their actions had consequences. They realized that bullying wasn't just a game. It could have a lasting impact on someone's life. They vowed to never bully anyone again and to stand up for others who were being mistreated. The experience transformed them into better, more compassionate people. Meadowbrook Elementary became a more welcoming and accepting place. Students were more likely to stand up for each other and report bullying to teachers. The school organized anti-bullying workshops and encouraged students to celebrate their differences. Imani's bravery had inspired others to be kind and compassionate. The students learned that it was okay to be different and that everyone deserved to be treated with respect. The atmosphere in the school became more positive and supportive, creating a safe and inclusive environment for all. The memory of the juice incident served as a reminder of the importance of empathy and standing up for what is right. Sarah's art began to change. Her drawings became bolder and more vibrant, reflecting her newfound confidence. She started to incorporate themes of friendship, courage, and justice into her artwork. Her dragons were no longer just friendly. They were also brave and stood up for what was right. She even created a series of paintings inspired by Imani, capturing her strength, kindness, and unwavering spirit. Sarah's art became a powerful expression of her experiences and her beliefs. It inspired other students to express themselves creatively and to use their talents to make a positive impact on the world. Her art blossomed, and it reflected the beauty of her soul. Imani continued to be a voice for those who were being bullied. She organized school-wide campaigns to promote kindness and respect. She spoke at assemblies, sharing her story and encouraging other students to stand up for what is right. She became a role model for many, showing them that it was possible to make a difference, no matter how small. Other students started to emulate her bravery, speaking out against injustice and supporting those who were being mistreated. Imani's actions created a ripple effect of kindness and compassion, transforming Meadowbrook Elementary into a place where everyone felt safe and valued. She proved that one person can make a big difference. Years passed, and Jake, Mike, and Lisa were no longer the bullies they once were. They had truly learned their lesson and were committed to making amends for their past actions. They actively participated in anti-bullying campaigns, sharing their experiences and encouraging other students to choose kindness over cruelty. They even apologized to Sarah again, this time with even more sincerity. They became allies to those who were being mistreated and worked to create a more inclusive and supportive environment for everyone at Meadowbrook Elementary. Their transformation was a testament to the power of empathy and the possibility of redemption. They demonstrated that people can change. Sarah and Imani remained best friends throughout their school years and beyond. They continued to support each other's dreams, celebrating each other's successes and offering comfort during challenging times. They became known throughout Meadowbrook Elementary as the dynamic duo who had transformed the school into a haven of kindness and acceptance. Their story served as a reminder that even the smallest acts of courage and compassion can have a lasting impact. The legacy of Sarah and Imani lived on, inspiring generations of students to stand up for what is right and to create a world where everyone feels valued and respected. Their friendship proved that kindness can conquer all.